What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? This is the question that we have been asking these last couple of weeks. As we entered into this Advent season, we entered into this time of joyful celebration, remembering what God has done. God has come. The child born in a manger is God with us. And we rejoice and celebrate. This morning, we lit the candle of joy. We speak words of joy. We long for joy. And the truth is that for many of us, probably most of us, maybe all of us, that our lives are this mixture of joy and struggle, happiness and longing. We live with that tension in our hearts. And sometimes, when we are in that place of struggle and tiredness, words like joy, hope, and light, they just fall flat for us. They taste like dust in our mouths. What are you waiting for? Are you waiting for joy to arrive? Are you waiting for joy to enter in? This morning, we're focusing on the waiting for strength in our lives. The strength that comes from God. This passage that we just read this morning, Isaiah chapter 40, marks a turning point in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah is a prophet coming to the people of Israel in a time of exile. They have been defeated as a nation, and their leaders, their best and brightest, and the people have been taken away from their homeland, far from their temple, far from their land. They are stuck in Babylon, in captivity. And they long for home. They have struggled and lived under the rule of another empire for decades. Hope is dwindling. The longing to return to the place that God had given them burns in their hearts day after day. And here in Isaiah 40, the prophet speaks to the people and says, the time of suffering, the time of waiting is coming to an end. Hope and joy are just around the corner. Comfort, oh comfort my people, says God. We often watch and read the scriptures looking for parallels to our own lives, to our own situations, wondering how to take these words of truth that we find in the scriptures and apply them into our context, into our daily walk. Though we may not be in exile in a literal sense, and though, let's face it, we live in a land of plenty, a land that knows peace and prosperity in so many ways, a place of freedom, a place where we can worship our God freely, with health restrictions, but freely. In spite of that, each of us carries within us the challenges, the struggles of our day-to-day lives. And honestly, it can get overwhelming. Doesn't matter whether you're someone who comes to church just once in a while and your faith is just barely hanging on by a thread, or whether you're the pastor in the pulpit. It gets hard. This fall has been a particularly challenging one for our family. Some of you have seen Kathy walking around with a brace on her leg. She fell and injured her knee, and it's been a couple months, and it's going to be a few months more on that long road to recovery. And that's just a little thing. For me, for us as parents, we have been carrying something a little heavier this fall. Sorry. It's hard as a parent to watch your child struggle. Our daughter, Kezia, just turned 17 this past week. And she has been facing constant migraines since mid-October. She's missed a ton of school. She can't go to her job as a gymnastics coach. She hasn't been hanging out with her friends. She hasn't been able to go to youth. She has been here at church sometimes, but just barely. We've had tons of appointments. Doctors, physiotherapists, acupuncture, massage, emergency room visits when the pain is just too much. Pills and more pills. Pills that don't work. Pills that work in ways they're not supposed to. Pills that just maybe might cause more damage than help. I've had MRIs, all kinds of tests. We still have no answers. No cause. And no plan. Oh, that's a helpless feeling as a parent. We just want to fix it, take it away, make it better. And yet, even in the midst of all of that, God is there. God has been there. There have been some amazing answers to prayer in the midst of all of that. She finally got her MRI just a few days ago, and the brain scan is normal. Hey, there's no tumors. There's no brain cancer. Whew. But then what? Another answer to prayer, huge answer to prayer, is in this time when our health system is really struggling. Her neurologist appointment was set for months down the road. As of just a couple days ago, that appointment has been bumped up to this coming week. Whew. Clearly, this is something that's hard for us as a family. But we carry it. We walk with it, not on our own. We have friends and family and our life group that walks with us and prays with us. And we thank you for your prayers in that. And the thing is, I know that we are not the only family that is carrying things like this. We're not the only ones who are just so tired, so worn down, and discouraged. We're not the only ones going through hard things in our lives. Here in our congregation, we have seniors who have to move out of their homes where they raised their families to live in new places, unfamiliar places, because they just can't keep up anymore. We have those who are facing long and painful rehabilitation from serious accidents. We have those who are living with the chemotherapy and recovery from surgeries for brain cancer. We have those who are watching loved ones slip away from dementia and Alzheimer's. We have those in our midst who are dealing with life as a single parent and all of the challenges that come with raising kids on your own. We have those who are grieving the loss of loved ones, spouses, children, close friends. We have those who are wrestling with questions of who am I? Where do I fit? Questions of gender and sexuality and how to live faithfully in the midst of all of that. We're so tired. Where do we find joy in the midst of that? We hear again the words of the prophet Isaiah. And may God's presence filter into our situation, our circumstances. Hear again these words from Isaiah 40, verse 1. Comfort, oh, comfort my people. My people. We are His. He knows us. He knows our circumstances. He sees our struggle. He knows our pain and suffering. And He embraces us. He does not abandon us in our need. And this is where the joy enters in. Joy, as you've heard many times in spiritual lessons and sermons from the pulpit, joy is not found in our circumstances. Joy is found in understanding where God is in the midst of our circumstances. And God is with us. There is no other time of the year when we are reminded so often that God is with us. As in Emmanuel, the child who is God, who comes into our world, into our reality, into our circumstances to be with us. In Isaiah 40, verse 10, we are called to cry out that the Lord comes with might. Another word for might is strength. The Lord comes with strength. It's not about my strength. It's not about your strength. I can't do this on my own. I don't. do this on my own. You and I, we are not enough, no matter what the TV may tell you. It is when God enters in that there is enough, that there is strength, that there is hope and light. As the Apostle Paul writes in the book of Galatians chapter 2, verse 20, he says, it's no longer I who live, it's Christ who lives in me. The strength that we long for and wait for is Christ in us. This season is called the Advent season. We remember Jesus is coming. We celebrate that Jesus has come as a child, that God has fulfilled his promises to humanity, that God has made a way through Jesus Christ. But the reason we celebrate it year after year is because we are longing for and waiting for Jesus to come again. His second advent. For those promises that we have received to be fulfilled, so that our joy may be complete as we walk in that hope. In Revelation chapter 7, we see a picture of God bringing all things under his reign through Jesus Christ. In Revelation chapter 7, we read these words in verse 16 and 17. These are those who have suffered and struggled under oppression and pain all their days. And it says this to us. Hear these words for you today. Never again. Never again will they hunger. Never again will they thirst. The sun will not beat on them, nor any scorching heat, for the Lamb at the center of the throne will be their shepherd. He will lead them to springs of living water. And God will wipe every tear away from their eyes. God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. The word of hope in Isaiah chapter 40 is this: there is an end to the suffering and struggle. There is an end, whether it is the discipline of God's people, Israel, who had turned away and as such were taken into captivity to turn their hearts back towards him, or whether it is the pain and struggle of life, our world infected by the disease of sin. There is an end, and so we have joy. God will be with us. He will be present with us. Emmanuel, God with us. Jesus says to his disciples as he commissions them to carry on his ministry and the message of the good news, I am with you always. And that promise extends to us today as well. We are not alone. Jesus is with us. The promise of Isaiah to the people of Israel is that the enemies will be defeated. There is nothing that can stand before God's mighty power. And we take from that for ourselves that there is nothing that we face. There is no circumstance, no situation, that God cannot overcome in our lives right now. The promise of verse 11 is that He will feed us, He will carry us, and He will guide us in our journey of life. And so we wait for the strength of the Lord in our lives. This is not a strength just to be able to stand and just to survive what we're dealing with. No, the strength of the Lord when it enters in is a strength for us to inhabit our identity as children of God. It is strength to be light and to reflect the light of Christ and to be the presence of Christ in this world to others who are waiting for strength, longing for joy. We are given the strength of God, which is the strength to make a difference, the strength to be good news. Let us be a people of good news, proclaiming joy, resting in the strength of our God as we walk through this world. Let's respond in song together.